So welcome to our first Digital Innovator Program Appy Hour. My name is Mario Piombo with Napa Learns, and I'm really excited to also be joined here by Andy Myers and Jen Ellison. And today we're going to be talking about Google Classroom, and we're really excited to have you all with us. Let's do the next slide. I didn't get that. Let's see.
Are you still? Oh, resume share. There you go.
There we go.
We were briefly paused.
So this training is brought to you by the Digital Innovator Program, which is our educational technology training program that Napa Learns is providing in partnership with Napa County Office of Education. We provide free, high-quality ed tech professional development to all teachers in Napa County, and our workshops are led by some of our most acclaimed Napa Valley teachers. And so we're really excited, again, that Jen and Andy are here to be leading this training. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick?
I am not Andy. I am Jen. And I think this is my sixth year at Phillips Elementary. And I teach technology. I run the technology design lab here at our school. And I also teach reading for a 4-5 combo because I'm a jack of all trades. And I believe this is my 22nd year of teaching. And I have taught everything K through 12th grade.
And I am Andy Myers, not Jen Ellison, and this is my 15th year in education. And I, as well, have taught K-12, have a dual credential. And this is my second year in Napa. So I work with Phillips, Bellard Park, and Willow with the grants. And fun facts about Jen and I, we both are born on the same day, which is May 20th.
May 20th.
So not only do we love technology in the classroom, same birthday.
Same birthday, which is my grandparents' anniversary. So happy anniversary to them.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
So we're all learning something new.
Yes. Mario, is your birthday May 20th?
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's October 18th, but it's okay. That might be the exact opposite end of the calendar.
Yeah,
okay.
kind of, yeah.
So, and Andy also has some Google creds.
Oh, yeah, you didn't mention. Very lead.
And recently, just got back about a month ago from the New York Google Innovator Academy. So,
how many people get accepted into the Innovator Academy every year?
So each cohort, we had the largest cohort because there was a college element to it. So there's 42 each cohort, but there are 2,200 worldwide innovators. So they say more people have gotten a gold medal than are Google innovators.
That's crazy. And I'm sitting next to one of them.
Jen can feel it.
I can feel it.
So do you guys want to talk a little bit about today's session and what we're going to cover?
Yeah, we wanted to talk about some basic advanced ways that you can use Google Classroom. So we're gonna focus on as if you're looking at Google Classroom as you move across it. We're going to talk about some things you can do within the stream, the settings, the classwork, and the people, just so that you kind of have some next step, because most people, obviously, in the district have started using Google Classroom, so we wanted to kind of show you some newer, more advanced ways to use it in the classroom.
Yeah, and a lot of it is the workflow of it. You probably know where the buttons are and have seen them, but it's, how might you use this in a way that's not specifically called out just by seeing the button where it is.
Yeah, and just, obviously any technology, whether it's a computer or a pencil, it should make your life easier. So we just kind of zeroed in on some ways that we found that Google Classroom makes my life easier in my classroom.
And then since there's not that many people, I'm curious, just open it up to you guys. Is there anything specifically you were looking to take from today's training that maybe we could incorporate or is already on our list?
I would love to see how to marry Aries and Google Classroom, and I know there's a setting in Aries that you can have it so that anytime your roster changes, it automatically changes within the Google Classroom, and I would like to set that up because that would make my life a lot easier.
Okay.
And the other thing is grades, talking about how to set it up so that grades make the most sense. I wasn't sure as a multi-subject teacher whether I in the past, I've always set it up as separate classes within Google Classroom. So reading is one class and math is another class. Is that the best way to do it when I'm looking at integrating the grades piece?
Okay.
Okay.
For me, I just started using Google Classroom this year, and so I think, like any other software, the more you practice, the better you get at it. And I, have had a trimester and a week of practice. So the idea about adding students automatically, that sounded like something that would be helpful, because I had 3 new kids come in since just this trimester. So I teach at Silverado Middle School, and we're on 3 trimesters.
One second.
All right.
Okay, now we're good. Okay. Well, the first thing we wanted to talk about, and I just thought, I've been to some Google trainings where they're just like all over the place. So for me, I think it's best to just like use what you have. So if you're looking at Google Classroom, do we want, okay.
You hit escape on the keyboard.
Yeah, escape. Is to just go ahead and work our way across the actual Google Classroom. So starting with the stream. So I've actually been using Google Classroom. I think this is my 3rd year, I feel like, because elementary got it before you guys did, and I sort of played around with it even before that. So when looking at the stream here, if you don't make any changes to it, every single assignment you ever make will go right into this feed, right? And some teachers like it that way. I actually have gone into my settings here. So I go up to the gear at the top, and I scroll down to the stream right here. Instead of students can post and comment, I switched it to only teachers can post or comment. So nothing goes into the stream except what I send there. And then I also, where it says classwork on the stream, oops, I'm a little too far down. I also put hide notifications. So that means that when I create an assignment, it does not feed into the stream. And I had heard a speaker talk about doing this, and I was like, well, why would you want to do that? Because, but I really wanted to train my students to go to classwork to look things up. And also any new assignments would be here in this upcoming box. So they still can see everything. But the reason I did that was because what I did here is I attached a slide deck, which is my agenda. So the only thing on this page in my Google Classroom for my reading class is our agenda. And I chose to use slides. Some people use a Google Doc. I like slides because you can just add a new slide each day and just keep adding and adding on to your agenda. And that way the students all have it. And in fact, I even put a giant green check mark on each slide when the day is over so that students know exactly where they are. And so my students can see the agenda whether they're at home or in school, and they don't have to look for it. And then also if I have any materials that I want them to look at, I might load it also here, post it right here on this spot so that there's not a lot of clutter. It's easy for students to access it. And I personally have found that to be really helpful because, I don't know, for my reading class, when I had all of the notifications of all the assignments coming in, it just got really messy and it was hard for students to find things. So, and I know especially a lot of the middle schools and high schools, you live and die by your agendas. Mm-hmm. And so I just, that's a great way to do it. And whether you use slides or docs doesn't really matter. I just prefer to use slides because I'm a slides fanatic, but both would work. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So
yeah, that streams that like sacred space. It's the first thing that students see. So you want to make sure you're curating that correctly. because that's what they see. That's where you want to have a lot of the content drive, on top of the fact they can go to classwork. But just be conscientious of how you use that space, because you can get a lot more out of it if you use it with that purpose.
Yeah. And the other option, of course, is another one that they added in, which is if you're constantly adding things to the stream, you can manipulate them by dragging and dropping them, which you didn't used to be able to do. So you could, and I know some people do that. They keep pulling their agenda to the top, pulling their agenda to the top. But if you limit what's posted there, you have the, you don't have to worry about that. So like here, Andy's put in a bunch of different assignments, and he's going to show you that he can move them around and manipulate them.
So if you click on those dots, the 3 dots on the side is how you can edit posts, and click move to the top. So if you have everything showing and you want to pull something that was a few weeks ago or a few months ago, you could just find it and then send it straight to the top with the 3 dots, move to the top.
And you can also manually drag it too if you want to. You have to hover over the 3 dots, and I think you get a crossbow. No, you used to be able to. Okay, never mind. Just kidding. You can't.
There was a rumor.
There was a rumor.
But we dispelled it.
I know that one of the things that I really appreciate about Google in general is that they are extremely responsive to teachers. They have people dedicated to, it's their job to watch teacher comments and teacher emails regarding, better functionality of all of their products. And every innovation with Google Classroom or Docs or Slides is a direct result of their responding to that communication. So I don't know, I just really like it. And then the other thing which some people really like is to create a custom, you can set yourself apart. Listen, other people just use the headers available to them in the Google Classroom, but you can get any picture you want and make it your header for your classes. You just need to know the secret numbers. So if you were to go and do an image search, go into the advanced settings of image search, and it's 2000 by 400 pixels, and it will give you the right size to be a Google Class header. So, and you can also do that with video. So if you want a little animated GIF, which I've done, but I found it, if you have like 3rd graders, they're really distracted by the animated header. So
use it wisely.
Use it thoughtfully.
But you could go into like Google Drawings and
right.
create a 2000 by 400 pixels. That way you don't have a picture of your class, and then it cuts everyone's head off because it's 2400 pixels tall. So
right.
Just a little custom tweak, since you are a digital innovator.
Right. And everybody like in your building will be like, how'd she do that? I don't know. Some people get really excited about changing the picture size. I don't know. I stopped looking at it after a while. So, yeah. And then the other thing that I do, and I don't know how you feel about this in middle school, was that I always change it so that only teachers can post or comment, because I don't need 37 people to type in hi, which is usually what happens. And obviously with older students, and actually even with students, in elementary school, there is something to be said for teaching them how to manage the internet correctly and how to respond correctly. And, if you're in a class, you should not post hi 12 times. But I don't have that kind of energy because I've got some stuff to teach them. So I just turn it off so that only teachers can post or comment, which makes my life easier.
And I did have a 7th grade group a few years ago that they actually were at that point where I unlocked it, and kids were asking responsible questions like, what was the quiz going to be on tomorrow? Or I lost my notes. Can someone share it with them? So, have those conversations first and then go from there. But like Jen said too, it's a great place where you can have students have those questions and have conversations about like, oh, well, how would you ask that without putting it all in caps? So it can be those authentic, genuine moments. Or if it's unregulated, it's going to be the internet,
right,
which can go bad fast.
Yeah. But I do think, oh, we didn't move in my classroom. Hang on. We got to move.
We have power, I swear.
Sorry.
There you go.
We were still too long. Yeah, and I agree. I think you can have some really powerful conversations and provide feedback for work, but initially I would always keep it locked until we'd had some training. So, okay. Let's go back in.
Okay, so we're going to move into, just give me a classwork.
Yeah, sure.
So in classwork, one thing that a lot of people ask is, So how do I get all of my Google classwork stuff in Drive? And
Magic.
and our response is just don't.
Yeah.
Just stay out of Drive. Like, let Google Drive do all the back-end stuff, all the Google magic, do the permissions, the setting, all of that. It's gonna put it into folders and organize it. Just even though you can go here, class Drive folder, just let it be there. Because whenever you wanted to go to an assignment, you could click on the assignment, click on the student's name, and go straight to it. And that way you're not going to change anything on accident and mess up the pathway that Google Classroom has already set. So that's our advice. You might hear something different. And if you find a really great case, let us know. But everything we've heard or tried just can only go bad.
Yeah. And I never have, it's funny because I've been to different trainings where people ask about, well, what about my Drive? And I was in and I've never even, since I've started using Google Classroom, even thought about my Drive because it just automatically makes everything for me. So I'm just everything I need is in Classroom. So I don't need to go to Drive for the assignments that students turn into me. So yeah. And also, if my students are working on a project and it's not finished, they leave it where it is in Classroom, and to access it again, they click on it in Classroom and it's not making a new copy for them. It's still the same one. So they continue working from there so they don't get confused. Yeah. So, and there'll be something to be said for, we usually teach our 5th graders at the end of the year to kind of straighten up and organize their Drive so that it's not all cluttered when they come to you at Silverado. So, so we do actually take some time to teach them to do that. Whether or not they follow through completely is another story, but we do try to get it cleaned up for you. So one of my favorite things I like to do in classwork is to ask a question. And I do that a lot of times often as like, just like a check-in question for the day. So I don't waste any paper. I can check in with my students really quickly and see where they're at. So that's one of my favorite things to do. And it's ungraded. So I just mark that it's ungraded. And so I can just look and see their responses. And then just recently we had so many of them that I archived them. So because it's ungraded, so it doesn't matter. So I just archived all of that stuff and it cleaned up the grading area. So.
And this is a great place too, where you could have like a check-in for your students. Real simple, like, how are you doing today? Is there anything you want me to know for that emotional wellness check-in? Because this might be a place that if they trust you, that they can put that. And as you're doing attendance, just kind of check that. Yeah. And then, like, oh, so-and-so, this happened to their family last night. So that's why they're a little bit like this today. Or, if they're too embarrassed to ask a question, they can say, hey, Mr. Myers, can you, when you have a moment, can you talk to me about this?
Yeah, and I discovered, only because one of my 4th graders consistently did it, they can choose to respond to the question right there where it's public, or they can send you a private message. And I have a couple of students who, on their own, just clicked private message so that I was the only person who could see it. And I didn't even teach them how to do that. They just found the button and clicked it. So if they're having something that they really want to tell me, I know one of my students, we were just talking about reading in general, and the message she sent me was, I'm afraid if I read out loud, everyone will laugh. So as they respond. And you can, and just like anything, you can drop in stuff from your Drive. So one day I put in 3 different memes of cats in various states of calmness or insanity, and they had to choose which cat represented how they were feeling. So.
Yes. I have a question.
Sure.
I took classes through Turo, and so I'm used to having my microphone muted and raising my hand and waiting to be called on. So
perfect.
When you use the question and you say that students can respond to you privately, if they don't do that, everyone in the class can see what the response is?
That's correct.
Okay.
And for some reason, there's a separate setting for that. They can actually even comment on each other's, unless you go to the trouble to say, so that's where they get their highs out. I let them say hi to each other there.
And let's actually, if you guys want to take a moment and then just join this class. So either go to your Gmail and then the grid and add this code, or you can go to classroom.google.com and it'll take you straight there. And that way you can try out some of the things that we're talking about. And this will set you up as a student, a participant in our class.
I think our plan was to drop in a link to the video of this if you, for some reason, just really want to watch Andy and I again later. So we'll put information in this Google Classroom. So theoretically, it'll be useful to you. We hope. And actually, the expanded view of the code was a complaint that teachers had. And Google Classroom like fixed it and said, yeah, because teachers were like, can you make it so we can display it big? And so they did. Because the first year I used it, I always had to write it on the board.
Oh yeah, yep. So once you guys have added that, just give us a thumbs up.
Maybe they didn't want to, and now you're making them.
Oh, this is awkward.
Oh, Mario's in, yay!
Hey, we got one. 1 million internet points for you.
You get all the points.
I've done something and I can't exit the screen that I'm in now.
Oh.
I hit the little thing that shrinks it, so now you guys are displayed on the right side of my screen, and the rest of the screen is filled, and I can't seemingly...
You're in full screen?
Wait.
Yep, I'm in the same boat. I can't seem to...
Okay, so I went up now to options.
If you hit escape, you usually...
Oh, there it goes. Yep.
And then
Did it?
now I can get to a classroom.
Yeah.
Yep.
I learned that because I also was at Touro University, and sometimes I had to do some classwork while I was, for my teaching class while I was in my Touro class. So you have to hit escape. Not that I ever did that.
Telling me the classroom code is invalid.
Invalid? Did you do it right? T9GOYQ?
Yep.
Huh, interesting.
Is it because I'm not an NVSD?
Oh, yeah, if
Yeah,
you're not,
you're
yeah,
counting.
you have to, sorry. Mario's not an NVUSD.
He's an outsider.
Yeah, so he can't get into our
We'll get you
system.
whitelisted.
It is a closed system, so that's also nice if parents ask you about that. They're very concerned about security. The other thing that's nice about the use of question is you could also throw in something. Well, you could use materials too for early finishers, and you could have them go to this one spot every time for something to do. Like if Mario were in first and he was waiting for the rest of the class to join, we could say, go ahead and pop on and click, There's a lot of clicking happening. We can hear it.
Click happens.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I think I'm logged in as a student.
Yay.
Okay.
I also like that about Google Classroom. You can be both a teacher and a student. So you can also, if you want, share a class. I share a couple of classes with some teachers, and we can both load assignments in. It depends on how much you trust somebody. If you've got a great partner teacher, then you might want to share a class because they would have the same powers that you do, which means that they could adjust the settings, delete, and so you might not want your tech iffy friend to join you. Okay, we want to see if we got people in our class.
Great.
Let's go to people. Now we have everything we need. Yep, we got our 2 students.
Hey.
Yay. And then of course, I teach elementary, so I don't generally invite my guardians, although I can if they wanted to join. And for my son's class, he's a middle schooler at River, my son and my daughter both. My email is connected, so I would get a weekly report from how they did in their class. Like they had these assignments due, or this assignment was late. It doesn't give me access to the actual assignments or to the teacher's grade book. So, but if I wanted to, I could attach that to somebody in your life who could check up on you and make sure that you turned in all your assignments, which can be really helpful. Do you guys use that at Silverado? Do you connect the parents' emails? No? He's waiting. He's like, oh no.
Somebody just showed us that at our last grade level meeting.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, what's really nice too is if you have if you had if you have a parent input their guardian information, or you put the information for them, that will also pre-populate in different classes.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So if someone let's say you teach language arts and the math teacher did it before you got access to it or put it in there, then that's going to show up. So the more people do it, the faster that will get filled up for you. That way you don't have to do all the work.
But I've also seen teachers, they just have a computer set up at back to school night, and then parents can come through and get in really quick.
Yeah.
So, which can be helpful, and obviously it's helpful to have that quick access to parents' information.
Yeah. And so we're saying again, remind parents that it's just a snapshot through email of what they're doing. It's not access to Google Classroom, because that's some teachers mishear that and they think it's like, oh, they can go in and see the assignments and all the thing. No, it's just an email snapshot.
And and it's great because the average child, when you ask them what they have for homework, they'll say, oh, so, or they'll say, I'll ask my kids, did you turn everything in? Yeah, well, that's interesting because it says right here you have a late assignment, and I saw you reading a book, so I know you had time. But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, so if we post, if you look, there's a question for you. How are you today? You can see it if you respond to it. Oh, there's 2 turned in. Look at us. Oh, good to know. That's, you know what, being fine this close to Thanksgiving break is like being fantastic, really. The fact that we're all upright and still awake, I think.
Oh yeah.
We all, everybody deserves cake.
You're here after work on your own time.
Or wine if that's what you do, but hey, I like cake.
When it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you can see right here, if somebody makes a comment that you don't want, you can mute them and then they can't talk anymore. So don't mute Lori.
I'm just showing you.
Okay.
I call it digital duct tape.
Yeah.
So, if you want a kid, that's just,
yeah,
that's what you do.
Because there's always that kid.
Yeah. And it was usually one of us. So,
well, mostly me.
And then there's that.
We just met today, actually. So, yeah. So I use the questions a lot. I actually sometimes will do it even as a review. Like we have been spending a lot of time because of benchmark reading about corn. So I threw in a question the other day because we've been talking and writing about it so much. What is one reason that corn is a good choice for a biofuel? And so hopefully they remembered something. So just as a quick review, and I assume, of course, you could also do it at the end of class. I have a hard time doing questions at the end of class because I always seem to run out of time to get to everything. So I like to do it at the beginning of class. So it's a great place for it.
Materials is a good way to put like an info dump. So you want a rubric,
Right.
you want
Question.
Yes.
I have a list of assignments for my students, and I would expect if I put a question in there that would be added to the assignments. I don't need that for grading, so.
Right. So when you assign it, you can mark it as ungraded.
Right, but then can I just delete it so that,
That's 100% what I do.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because it gets super cluttery. I hadn't been doing that, and I realized, and I made it a separate category. So, when you go to look at all the classwork, it was, I think I called it discussion. And so it was all there together. I think I had like 60 questions, and I was like, oh, I can just delete them. And it really cleaned things up. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, great.
When you said you made a separate category, so if you click on question.
Topics, you mean?
No, yeah, topics. Yeah. I always say category instead of topic. So I made one of so then it was easy for me to delete it because I could just delete the entire topic.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we can look at topics now. So topics is a great way to organize your work, whether it's by units, by themes. So we talked a little bit earlier about early finishers. So if you finish early, go here. These are things you can do. Right. It's that like the binder approach to their work. So these are the dividers and what you're going to do. And this has only been live maybe 6 months. Did they have it last year?
No, they had it last year.
I think they had it last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
or at least I tested it last year, but yeah.
So they didn't always have it.
No.
So it was in the past, it was just a slew of everything.
Yeah.
But, think about how you're designing it. This is your topic, and you could even put your materials all under one topic.
Materials, yeah.
So when we say topics, that'll sort it. So we have the Napa Learns resource, November 20th, just right here, and that's the topic. And you can rename it and delete it with the 3 dots.
Right. Yeah. So, and I've tried it a bunch of different ways. I used Classroom before it had topics. And at that point, I would number everything sequentially so that it was easier for me to say to a student, you're missing assignment number 7, and they could look in their feed and find assignment number 7. I don't do that anymore now that we have topics. This year, I'm actually, my topics are units. So for my reading class, we just have been working in unit 3. And everything that we do within that unit is there underneath that, and that made it easier. Last year, I did topics and I numbered the assignments within the topics, but then it just I would forget to add numbers, and so then I would have to go back through and edit it, which is another thing. Like sometimes I will forget to give a category or a topic to something, but you can still do it after the fact, and then it'll put it in the right spot. So if it doesn't have a category, it sits above everything else. In that sort of unfiltered space. And so every now and then I'll just make sure I put everything where it's supposed to go. It's kept me a lot more organized, I think, and it's made it easier for my students. But for me, as an elementary school teacher, getting them to shift from looking in the stream to looking in classwork was just, I just had to train them, and now they know. And they actually have a better sense of what unit they're on. Yeah. Whereas I think in the past they had no idea, but they know they had to look for unit 3. So I guess there are some benefits to that as well. So, and the other thing which you might show, especially with older students like your middle schoolers, is that the second you make an assignment with a due date, it automatically loads it into their Google Calendar. So if you wanted to teach them to use, oh, look, Andy's very busy. If you wanted to teach them to use their Google Calendar as an actual agenda, you could show them that it's just automatically going to load it into their calendar. They don't have to worry about it. So, which is a really nice feature for both you and for them. And I know as adults, a lot of us use that Google Calendar feature to manage all of our work meetings and after school meetings. And so obviously that's a skill that would be helpful as they continue on. So I haven't talked to my students about it yet this year. It's more of an end of the school year thing for them. So
it's a great way. Like that's a planner. I remember I had to go out and buy a planner for middle school and high school because that was required when for my teachers. That is their planner, and they can put, if they choose to put their own personal things in there, band practice, this, that, the other, make sure to do my homework. That can live there too. And that's just a great skill that we can give them.
And also for your visual learners who really need to see how many days do I have until this is due, that's like, they need that picture. Because I always needed that. Oh, I really have to do that now. So, which happens a lot. So some questions we've got in the past are about the idea of like, okay, so if I'm creating an assignment, but I want it to be a group assignment, how do I manage that? Because I need to give every person in my class a grade, but I only want one slide deck for that group, right? So there's some workarounds that I've done. One is to, obviously you could only assign it because you can choose who you assign things to whenever you give an assignment. So you could choose to assign it to just the group leaders. But then if you're relying on that sync between your classroom and Aries, right? You don't have space to give grades to the rest of the class. So that's the issue with that. So the other thing that you can do is you can go ahead and assign it to all of them, and all of the students who are not the group leader will just mark it as done. And then the group leader will be the one who has attached the deck, slide deck or whatever, and turn it in. So that's a workaround for that. And I've done that for both. And I have, right now, I have 6 newcomers who don't speak a lot of English in my reading class. And so they have separate assignments from my English speakers. And so I have to navigate both of those, which gets, honestly, it's a little cluttery in the gradebook. So sometimes this is what I've started doing with them. I will assign them the assignment in English and attach to it the assignment in Spanish. So then I only have to deal with one column of grades in my grade book, but everybody has what they need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's actually been a pretty big issue for me because 1/4 of my class are not English speakers. So, and my grade book just kept getting longer and longer and longer. And it would say not assigned to the other 20 kids in my class or 22 kids in my class. And that bothers me. So I don't like all those little missing spaces. So you can manipulate who you assign things to. I've had a student tell me, oh, I can't find it anywhere. So I just reassign it to that one kid. And so, and that's a time saver, right? So, and then I'll clean it up later. But yeah, so that's kind of like in the assignment range. I mean, obviously, you know how to make assignments. Do you have any questions about making assignments? And I always do, even because I teach younger kids, but I think if I was still teaching freshmen, I always create the template and have it make a copy for each one. Because then it forces them to turn it in. Whereas if you do the other way and you have them add a doc or add a slide deck, sometimes they forget to add it.
And then when you do the Oprah approach, where everyone gets a copy,
you get a copy, you get a copy.
It gives them their name, it gives them the assignment, it does all that for you automatically. Drive does that, so that way you don't have to, if you're downloading it later, you're looking at it, you don't have to try and find their name. It's just already there.
Right.
So a lot of times, even when I was working with 5th grade, I would, like Jen was saying, I would create a document, just a blank document,
right,
and then just assign that out. Because anytime they have to go and create it, even if, as a student, you can just go and create from Drive, that's just extra time and things that could go wrong. And if it's already there for them, they just get straight to work right away, and they don't have to worry about any of that other stuff.
And I have been doing that with them for years. And so, but now sometimes we'll do a creative piece where they have to add something to it. So I'm teaching them both, so that as they move on to middle school and high school, they should know how to do it if they have to add something to it. So, but my standard procedure is to have it always make a copy for them. And also, I don't know if this is a problem for you, but when I would create that blank document, maybe I'd have the title, which means that I have now set the font style and font size for them. And, they don't have to spend 16 hours choosing the perfect font. I'll say, just leave it the way it is. So you don't get it in cursive and, various shades of blue and green.
Or yellow.
Or yellow.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be totally unscripted. This is something I learned yesterday.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see.
So if you, instead of going to Drive to create, you can go to docs.new.
Is that that's what's new? You didn't know about that?
I just don't know.
Yeah, slides new, all of them.
Slides.new.
Sheets new. I taught my students that. You should have been in my
drawings.
class.
There's no drawings though.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. They're always working on it.
But let's say, I think of an assignment, something I want to create on the fly real fast that I want to get out to my class. So this is the assignments. There it's saved.
And now you can attach it.
And now assignments, go to your Drive, and it's right there.
Yeah.
So if you do you think of something, you want to get feedback from them real quick, it's longer than just a question. You can create that real fast and then put it right in there.
Which is one of the things I like about Classroom is that, I can, oh, wait, why don't I have you make a doc and do this? And I've said to my students, hang on a second, let me make an assignment. And then they'll go into Google Classroom and it'll be there. Often, depending on how fast a logger honor they are, I can get the assignment made before they log on to their Chromebook. So it's not the only way I do assignments. I do pencil paper assignments as well, but a lot of my reading assignments are in there. I also have a tendency, oh yeah, go ahead.
Like I said, I just started using Google Classroom this year, and there's another teacher that does that puts the assignment in, or puts the document into the assignment, and so the kids can just start on it.
Yeah.
And I've had, some of my students whining, why don't I do that? Because, the assignment is create a Google Doc,
Right.
and submit it in Google Classroom. So I can understand. To me, it's not that big a deal to create a
Right.
Google Doc.
Yeah.
Right.
One fewer button click is preferable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a pretty simple way of doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's also something to take the time to make sure that they can do that on their own, because they need to be able to do that on their own. And if it's a Phillips kid telling you they don't know how to do that, they're lying, because I taught them.
we need names.
And I need names because I know they know how to do it.
But yeah, like any clicks, because you think of the number of clicks throughout a day that they have, that you can save them and save yourself
Save
too.
yourself
like
more.
that adds up a lot of time. So
Yeah.
and to Jen's point, at some time they're going to do work that doesn't come from Google Classroom,
Right.
so they have to know how to do it
Right.
on their own. But that's not a big hour-long lesson. That's just, okay, guys, this is how you do it. Let's
Right.
practice it a few times.
Docs.
You're good. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. And then and another thing, sometimes I will create like either what some would interpret as like a digital worksheet. So maybe I'll have created in slides something that I want them to respond to. And I tend to make it in slides because of the simple fact that when you create in slides, I don't know why I didn't just do slides.new, but okay. I can, what I'll do is I'll create something on this first slide, and then I will save it as an image instead of a doc. And then on the next slide, I can insert it as a background. So when I click on this slide right here, I can load it in as a background, which means that it's the background of the slide, and my students can't accidentally click on it and erase it. So the form that I want them to fill out is there, and then I've taught them to create text boxes on top of it. It's also kind of one of the reasons I like doing my agenda in slides, besides the fact that it's really easy to manipulate everything. But that's another case where I definitely want to them to have their own copy of it, so that, you want to do your KWL chart. So you just, maybe I just do a screenshot of, no, you save it as JPEG. Yeah, I've done both. So now you can load that in as a background, and they're not going to erase the KWL chart, because there's always that one kid who erases everything you spent time making.
Yep.
And they're like, I don't know what happened. And I'm like,
Yeah.
just keep hitting back until it comes back. Now, of course, there's some kid who's going to be accidentally erase the whole background,
Yeah.
which is so annoying.
Why does mine look like this?
Yeah, because you push buttons you shouldn't have. That's why, kid. But I find that using that as a background is one way to like sort of control it. Not as much as I'd like, but so that's oh, hey, that's nice. That's one little pro tip to put in there. But it's also funny because you can see the kids who aren't thinking intuitively, and they're like, I can't write on here. Well, because you have to make a text box, that's an important skill for them to learn too. So I did that with the rules of the tech lab at the beginning of the school year. I did a chart just like that.
Or if you wanted, you could, so I'm deleting those first two, and then you yourself could go and put the text box in.
Yeah, I've done that. And you can even make the edge show so that they can see the box. I do that with my youngers. My first and second graders, I'll have it all set up. And I'll even have, because one of the reasons I like to work in slides so much is like I can have the possible answers on the outside edges, not within the slide itself. And then my younger students can just pull the answers in, which is what I'm actually really teaching them to do. So that hopefully when they come to you at Silverado, they can do stuff on their computers, and they should be able to type. So, so those are some of the next level things that I find that really help me in the classroom. The other thing that I often do is that I will, because I have multiple grade levels and multiple languages, I often will take the benchmark tests, and I will type them up in Google Forms. And I do that because Google Forms can auto grade them. I can assign different versions. And it just makes my life easier, although I do have to take the time to type it. So, but I was gonna have to type it in Spanish. I was gonna have to modify it for my younger, so I was already typing, so it made it easier for me to type. And I don't know if you've noticed, when you go to assignments in Google Classroom, you can do a quiz assignment, or you can just do a regular assignment. I tend to go ahead and create it in forms already, separate from Google, and then pull it in as just an assignment.
So
I've done it both ways.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So I use Khan Academy, and
Right.
Khan Academy marries really well with Google Classroom,
Yes, it does.
and it also goes into the grades, and so does quizzes. So that's really nice.
Mhm.
What can we do to lean on the likes of Bridges and Benchmark to have them play nicely with Google Classroom?
I know that I've mentioned it to our benchmark and person because it would make life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And for me, my benchmark experience is, complicated because my students come from 4 different homerooms. So for me to use my gradebook to link into Aries is irrelevant because I actually don't even have access to Aries. I have to give grades to their homeroom teachers, and the homeroom teachers have to log in, or the homeroom teachers have to log me in as them so that I can put in my students' grades. So that's so I may as well just go ahead and do it in forms, right? So but it is a workaround.
Because for me, using Benchmark, I like the fact that they have all their reports are
right.
tied to the standards, and so it's really nicely done. We use Mastery Connect too,
Right.
and I know some of the teachers here will take everything and put it into Mastery Connect, and I've resisted because I'm like, Benchmark has done it all, but
Right.
they just don't
Yeah.
make it easy to
Right.
use everything, all our other tools. So and Bridges similarly,
Right.
and, if we're going to be a Google district, I think
Yeah.
that we need to put pressure on the curriculum that we choose to be able to play nicely with the Google tools.
And I also think any curriculum that chooses not to or doesn't make an effort to play nicely with Google Classroom is making a mistake because teachers are utilizing it, and it's I feel like it's a lot easier to observe and use than any program that we've used in the past. Especially now that they have had it, you can connect it to Aries, whereas a year ago you couldn't at all.
Yep.
So they're definitely. Aries was like, okay, we need to work with these people. So yeah, definitely. I think we just need to make sure that we pass that information along to whoever we can, because it would be fantastic if I could just drop my benchmark assignments straight into Classroom and still get those reports. That would be ideal.
Yeah, and I think it's feedback. And curriculum is notorious for being the slowest in education to react to technology trends. So when you think about getting just the digital e-version of any book, some companies are still just giving you a PDF, and
Right.
that's their digital version. So just the more feedback we give them that this is what we want, this is what we need, and then
Right.
trying to figure that out once it's there.
Yeah. You guys you're connected to Aries already? Or
Yeah, I have Aries, but I haven't connected it to Google Classroom yet. But I went to that workshop, and
Right.
I was told that there was a way to do it, but unfortunately, the setup that he had, they had him on Safari, and he couldn't get it to do
interesting.
anything.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that was. But I was like, if I could get that to work, that'd be
Right.
I'd really like to do.
So this is how I dealt with grades in Google Classroom a few years ago in a different district. The Gradebook is more established now. Back then you couldn't weight things and give it, it was essentially just a spreadsheet, and it didn't have any options with it. But I think I might even still do this now, is I just made every assignment 1 point or 0 points. So it's, you either turned it in or you didn't. So essentially that's my record of, are you doing your work or not? And then, because a lot of times I'm just gonna have to regrade it and putting into the grading system anyways, I don't wanna double grade. So I would let my students and parents know the grade's gonna be in Aries or whatever reporting system you have, and your assignments, just your completion percentage, is going to be in Google Classroom. And it just kind of simplified things for parents and students. And that way I didn't have to worry about a group project being worth 50 points and completely wiping out all the other activities they had because they were in a bad group or they just didn't perform as well on that. So it's not directly a question of how to use the gradebook in classroom, but it's how I use it or would use it.
Yeah. And I've always had to hand calculate somewhere else anyway. So, but I understand that we had a really streamlined system as far as grades go in the past, and you could weight things. You can weight things. You can add, you have your overall grade calculation system, and you can do weighted by category here. So that's new. That's new within the last, I think, 6 months.
Yep.
And I think it's because so many people probably from Napa were like, I need to be able to weight these.
Feedback made a difference.
And then you can make those grade categories. So you can do that. And then as far as connecting it to Aries, tragically, that is not my area of expertise because I can't get into Aries anyway. So I'm not a real teacher, even though I'm a teacher. I don't have a homeroom. That's why. So yours is already connected to, is yours connected to Aries, Gary? Yeah.
Okay.
Was that done administratively or did you have to do that on your own?
No, it was done automatically.
Right.
And we use StudySync
Right.
as our online textbook, and it's connected with Google Classroom too.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's nice that StudySync does that.
But as you said, they're coming up with new stuff all the time, and sometimes on the fly. Like something that wasn't there at 9 o'clock is now something available at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
Yeah, and I've had people,
it's impressive, actually.
I've had people at sessions like the night before they're preparing for their session, they present the next day, and the button's not there because they
changed it. Yeah.
Usually in October they push an update, and in
June because at ISTE they usually announce the really big things, which is like quizzes. Actually, the fact that you can create a quiz in Google Forms was from one ISTE to the next. So at one ISTE they got the feedback that if people could use forms to create a quiz, that'd be great. And then the next one they're like, we have quizzes now. So So I know that it'll get better and better. And I think if as far as feedback goes for those, like for Benchmark and Bridges, not just feedback to our Benchmark and Bridges people, but also to Google Classroom, because sometimes they'll be like, hey, you should connect with us, and they'll push companies to connect with them. And Khan Academy was that way.
Speaking of feedback, if you go to that question mark in the bottom left corner.
Yeah. And there's a person assigned to just look at those. That's their job.
And that is one thing when I was
I think it's more than one person. Let me clarify that.
There's a team.
There's a team.
But when I was at the academy last month, they said they do have at least a weekly meeting where they go through and their team looks at and addresses those features, and whatever is most requested, they put at the top of their list, and that rolls out usually every year. So every either quarter or to a year it's when something's heavily featured in the requests that they add it.
So send feedback, have your friends send feedback, have your friend's cousins send feedback, and we'll get those things straightened up.
It's always funny because I remember I think it was last year I was asked to be on the beta team for grades for elementary, I guess, and the district blocked me.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
me
was
too.
Whitelisted, So
yeah,
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're suspects.
So we want to definitely honor your time because it's almost 4:30.
Yeah.
And you all showed up early even. But we're going to continue to dig into, I think, the gradebook issue ourselves as well, so that we can, help you with that. But my understanding was that as a school site, it would be set up so that it connects together for you, or even at the district level, right? So
the part that I saw in Aries was you brought up Aries, and then you went into settings, and you could put in, a link to
your Google Classroom.
So I had tried just copy and pasting the URL and putting it in there, and that didn't work.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm not doing it quite right, and I was kind of wondering what I should do to get that to, cross-reference with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I can talk to technology about that because yours isn't refreshing. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a student leave and it doesn't come off, and I
Right.
have everyone come. So
Okay.
Yeah, because that would be convenient because we're always having students come and go.
right.
And so, but I really do think that that's something that they control at the district level, because I don't think you would want that many fingers in the pie of pulling students in, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be on us.
Yeah.
Because I would be like, you know what, you're deleted.
And then
You're bringing
Gary,
down my average.
Gary, you had a question too about adding students. Is it the same when you get new students? Are they added automatically?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's because, the first trimester, I don't know that I had maybe one or two kids, but then this trimester, for some reason, I got 3 new students in a week and a half.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I can check on that, and I'll email you guys about where it pulls from. If it's supposed to be at midnight, Aries automatically syncs. There's certain things that may or may not be happening that are supposed to happen, or if it's on the teacher's end for new students to
Right.
go in and just have them have you guys say, okay,
Join the class.
join the
Which
class.
is what I've been doing, but you're right. If it's syncing to your gradebook, then do they have that? Does that child automatically get a space in your gradebook?
So
Because it's really nice that if it'll sync to Google Classroom, Khan Academy is syncing to Google Classroom. It's like a whole trickle down effect.
Right.
I don't have to touch any of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be,
And it makes it easier for our students as well.
yeah.
Okay.
All righty. Hey, thank you very much for doing this.
oh
And
yeah.
Thank
the
you
only
for
thing-
showing up.
the only thing we miss is the
snacks.
snacks and the person-to-person thing.
Yeah. No, but of course, and hopefully this is more convenient. And like we said, our plan is to put the video in. So if there's something you wanted to go back to, you could.
Okay. And
Yes,
I know
thank you very much.
Yeah,
once
yeah.
we get all the Promethean boards put in, I'm sure that this will be a great venue to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. I love my
Yes.
Promethean board. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And as you guys are thinking of, what would benefit you in the future, just let us know, because we're building out the topic list right now
Right.
of things that would be most beneficial. And you guys are the early adopters on the video. You get
We're going to listen to you first.
priority.
So think of something good.
All right. Hey, thank you.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome, guys.
Excellent. And
Good night.
a moment ago, did someone say that they were going to be starting the master's program at Turo, or going to be taking classes?
No, I already finished it. I was saying I had taken it.
Okay.
I was telling Lori she should take it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, maybe next year. We'll see.
There you go.
Yeah. Lori's a little busy, but yeah.
Yeah.
Where else do you get somebody to pay for half of it?
Yeah.
I know. It's
Yeah,
good to
it was not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. There is a commitment
Yeah.
once a week to be sitting in front of a screen for whatever length of time.
Right.
I have a wonderful wife who would bring me something to drink and a little snack halfway through. And just mentally, I thought, okay, I got half the class done. I had this little snack. I can muscle through the end.
My son used to, it's adorable. My little son would make me a cup of coffee and bring it over to me.
That's
While I was
nice.
in class, which is so sweet. And they knew that they had to be quiet. But yeah, and I learned a lot about technology, and I'm a tech person, but I learned even more. So yeah, I recommend it as well.
Yeah, I would
It's free.
I would encourage you, Lori, if you had any interest in that. And if there's anyone else at your school that has gone through the program, I would expect they would be encouraging of you as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
definitely.
to hear.
All right.
All
Happy
right, guys.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
All right, thanks. You
Bye.
too.
Thank you.
See you again.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And goodbye. Did I do it right?